This is not true. It's a lie. There is no genocide of white South Africans. And let me make this clear for the benefit of those of you who are not South Africans. I'm a white South African, but I'm not an Afrikaner. I'm not a Boer, as people say. But even the Afrikaner people, the vast majority of Afrikaners don't want to leave this country. All Afrikaners and white people have a very good life in South Africa. We are doing fine. Thank you very much. We do not need to leave, and we do not need refugee status from Trump. So, why has Trump decided to grant refugee status to a group of Afrikaners? Well, he likes keeping in the media, but I think that it really has more to do with his friend Elon Musk, who, remember, is a former South African. He has not been granted a license to operate his Starlink internet here in South Africa. And he has probably done this whole thing to provoke the bear, to create some kind of acrimonious situation and force the South African government to pay more attention to him. But let me just reiterate this. The group of South Africans who claim to be refugees from a white genocide, it's quite frankly an embarrassment.
A prominent liberal TikToker, she threatened to murder the white South African refugees if they make it here.
Good morning. This is for the South Africans who are going to be entering the United States. This is just a public service announcement. I just wanted to make you aware that the black people who were students during apartheid, we're grandmas and grandpas now, and we have the air of Gen Z. One more thing, I also want to let you know that our president, he has Secret Service, and you will not. I also want to tell you that black people over here are empowered. These are just public service announcements. When you get here, sit your ass down and don't touch nothing. Because you don't have Secret Service. Okay. Now have the day you deserve.
All right, well, glad to see this. If for no other reason than we have finally found one group of migrants, one group of marginalized people that the left does not like. Finally, it's taken decades. We found it. It's white people. Okay, all right, that's fine.
What the do I have to do in this council in order to get respect as a black woman? I'm not afraid of anybody here. When I make a mistake, I will be clear. I don't hate you as a white woman. I don't hate you as a white man. I am sick and tired of this body so stupidly racially divided, so afraid, so depraved. People with no faith because they are afraid of they're losing their advancement. They're afraid of bargaining. They're afraid of leveraging. These people have, oh my God, I can't even call you cowards because desperation deserves mercy. Here's a redistricting. Fine, we give it to a white woman. Can we all get along? Can we get together? Can we love each other now? Can we make sure that black and brown babies don't die? Can we make sure that cops don't kill before people are proven innocent? Can we do that? No, because this body crucifies you first because of allegations. This is not a court. You don't get to crucify people before they're proven guilty. They're innocent until proven guilty. Now, after this, I will look forward to working with you because I have stamina. I believe, as Baldwin said, what you do, not what you say. Your votes here sometimes are racist. You move sometimes in a way that hurts my people. And then when I get up to stand up and talk, all she talks about is black stuff.
As you should.
I am here to represent every single black woman and man that suffers in the community. God has my back. I am not afraid to not have political aside or any type of affiliations or connections. I came here, I fear none. my Lord. I came here to serve people. I came here to love. I came here to grow. But people talk about this racial equity thing. It's all fake. And you do politics and you hurt each other. And yet, here I am, a 5-foot-tall African woman from the projects. And I am here to tell you, if the voters don't vote me back,
We are
Guys, I can't move to America, I'm sorry. I was just Googling and they don't have this thing. You know this one, Drinko Pop. You know this one, Drinko Pop. They don't have it there in America. They only got Kool-Aid. I already have Kool-Aid, my bra. Sasa's quite cool, bra. If you didn't grow up taking this one, biting it like this, and putting your tongue in there, you're not a South African. Don't even come with that. And if I don't have this in America, I'm not going. You guys must then send me away and send me packets of this all the time. Thank you.
My name is Davy Wessels. President Trump, I see a lot of liberals wants to tell you what's going on in South Africa. Well, on ground level, our situation is dismal. And yes, you are correct in your assumption that South Africa is a failed state. We are experiencing a warlike situation with more than 22,000 people being murdered each year, hundreds of thousands of people being affected by crime each year. Thousands of our people and children are being murdered and raped on a daily basis. I'm a boer and farmer, and since the ANC came into power, thousands of white farmers were murdered and tortured to death on their farms. This being actively encouraged by the EFF and ANC. People are dying in state hospitals, always, waiting for days to be admitted for standard procedures, all the while the ANC cadre steals the money which is supposed to go to the needy. All state institutions are failing, and the woke liberal DA are the ones signing the expropriation law into power, since they are part of the ANC-led government. The situation is so bad currently that if a loved one doesn't answer their phone, you're immediately worried about what could have happened to them. The woke liberals and the ANC is trying to paint a rosy picture, but if you want our help in your investigation, we will show you the reality on ground level. We already gathered 50,000 signatures in 2 days in support of this message of us, and it is to be handed over in a huge gathering by our fellow Boers and Patriots Saturday the 15th at the US Embassy in Pretoria. This gathering is organized by myself and fellow Afrikaner Willem Petzer. We sincerely hope this message will reach you, and we want to thank the international community for their continued support.
So I saw this viral clip, which was a GB News recording, and the in-house commentator on the show was basically saying that colonization had benefits. Benefits. Watch the clip.
We now have a generation that believes everything we did by colonizing. Yes, it is true. They think everything about colonization was wrong. It wasn't. There were some terrible things, and there were some good things to come out of it. And that is about properly acknowledging your past.
Education.
Yes, completely.
Sanitation.
Transportation.
Yeah. There was so much that we brought to communities. But that is. But
you're typical of what we're talking about.
No, I'm saying that colonization, the empire was wrong. It was wrong, full stop. That's, the things that Britain might have done.
But that's very much through your modern sensibilities, you might say that, because we wouldn't now routinely go into other countries.
It was a profoundly racist set of basically invasions of other people, where we subjugated people to our rule and sort of made them work for us. It was completely
made their countries work.
But imagine yourself in the shoes of a 13-year-old boy hearing you say that.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
What do they then? How do they then carry that through life?
Well,
in terms of who I am as a Brit.
But it's not about.
We had racist ancestors. Say it,
but Bev.
But I'm saying that we hear much more of that than we do about the benefits of that period of time.
Well, because I don't think there were benefits. I think that we have to be completely.
Of course there were.
I don't think there were.
There were benefits to us.
A lot of those countries did not, Jonathan, those countries...
It absolutely does.
Those countries did not have money. They did not have the creativity. They did not have people in positions of power to do this. No, they didn't.
Countries. They just didn't live like Britain did. doesn't make it worse. It just makes it different.
So it's okay to live without education, and it's okay to live without a transportation system, is it?
They did have education. It just wasn't our education system. They had language. It wasn't our language.
This cultural
medicine we brought to
precisely what we have.
Yes.
I don't know why.
Colonization was not a civilizing mission. It was an enterprise in exploitation and domination. And that's the fact, you know. While colonizers often claim that they brought education, transport, and governance, all of that to Africa, but this argument dangerously whitewashes the violent and dehumanizing realities of imperial rule. Colonization was built on violence and theft. It just came to pillage and plunder. All the infrastructure they claimed to set up were just there to serve the purpose of the colonizers. So from the rail to the waterways to the road network, it all led to one thing: the ports, where they took out all the stuff they pillaged from Africa. Colonial education was cultural erasure, religious erasure. That's what colonial education did to us. For some people to come out there and say, oh, the colonizers brought education. We had our systems before the colonizers came. And no amount of infrastructure justifies the human cost. Millions of people died under colonial rule across the world. Millions. So you don't applaud a thief for renovating your home after burning down your village. These so-called benefits of colonization, they came at the expense of our sovereignty, dignity, culture, and countless lives. So take this as colonization 101, and especially for those of us who still claim that colonial rule did a lot for us. No, it did not. It pulled us back, and we're still playing catch up. You need to understand that. Peace.
Did you guys see this? The South African president, Cyril Ramaphosa, he gave his thoughts on the 49 Afrikaners that came to the U.S. Listen.
It's a group of South Africans who are demonstrating that the changes and transformation that we are embarking upon here, they are not favorably disposed to it, and that's why they are running away. So as South Africans, we are resilient. We don't run away from our problems, and we shouldn't run away from our problems. And if you look at all national groups in our country, black and white, we've stayed in this country because it's our country, and we must not run away from our problems. We must stay here and solve our problems. So when you run away, you're a coward, and that's a real cowardly act. And I expect every South African to stay here, and we work together, and we solve our problems. We've got the most beautiful country in the world, and I can bet you they will be back soon, because there's no country like South Africa. Thank you.
What do you guys think about this? He said that they did not embrace change. Instead, they were running away. He called them cowards, and he even bet that they will return. Let me know what you guys think. Comment below.
Well, it's very easy to unite in dancing, but not to unite in sharing of wealth and property. That's why in South Africa, the whites have to create South African white only town known as Orino. I hope I pronounce it well. Imagine, they can dance together, but they cannot live together in the same town. They created a city for themselves, and black people are not allowed to live in that place on the white people. Like, just imagine, like, black people in Europe create a town where white people are not allowed to live simply because they are white. Like the kind of thing we accept in Africa, especially in South Africa, like the kind of nonsense, like, it's very insane. You can't even imagine it. The kind of fright, the kind of stupidity that we allow. It's such a shame, to be honest. Like, just out here enjoying the dance, but when it comes to sharing of property, well, living in a town, that's where I draw the line. That's crazy.
AfriForum has finally gotten their way.
Or have they? They've managed to convince Donald Trump that there's a white genocide happening in South Africa, land grabs are going to happen under the new land expropriation policy, all of which are verifiably untrue. However, they have now poked the bear being Donald Trump, who has now posted on his Truth social media that he is going to take away all funding from South Africa, all trade deals, all funding, all aid, to punish us for this land expropriation bill, which has nothing to do with land grabs, just to be clear. Now AfriForum is freaking out because if Trump does that, if he takes away things like AGOA and other things that make our trading with America easier, do you know who suffers? White businesses. They're the ones who suffer, not the kind of ANC politicians that AfriForum was trying to get a dig at. So now AfriForum is coming out and saying they are going to lobby Donald Trump again, this time to say, no, please don't punish the people of South Africa, just the individual politicians. Can you just sanction them? It is so clearly a political play. And of course Trump fell for it. And of course it's backfired for AfriForum. And it's all farcical if it wasn't for the fact that it has real impacts and effects on us ordinary South Africans, who, by the way, are not out here killing white people in the street.
I came across this video and it's so disappointing, man. I just don't like how our brothers are being treated in the Vatican. I just don't like it how they're being treated in Rome. Do you see how these folks are treating each other, are hugging and doing all that sort of stuff? It's only when they get to our brother. They don't touch. They don't hug. They don't do nothing. They don't get any close. They just talk from a distance. Just wait until we move to the next brother. All the love, the hugs, the proximity. They can't get close to our own brother simply because he's black. With all these other white dudes, white folks, they demonstrate all the utmost love that they possibly can. I don't know what is it with our black priests. Why are they not being shown so much love in Rome? Or Catholics, please, don't come for me. I'm just asking simple questions. Could it be also be one of the reasons why we haven't had a black pope in ages, in a very, very long time? We're just asking questions. If the system is not racist, if the system is noble, or let's just say if the system is truly being inspired, the Catholic system, if it's truly being inspired by the Holy Spirit, don't you think they should treat everyone equally? Don't you think they should also show it, in how they behave around our African brothers? It seems like our African brothers are not really given much opportunity to have that sense of belonging. And I don't even know why they go there. I don't know why they go there. I don't know why they seek the approval from Rome, from the Vatican, man. As Africans, we can just say, Roman Catholics, as Africans, we can just have your own Catholic denomination in Africa and not rely on the Vatican. Do you really need them? Do you really need Rome to be overseeing your spiritual activities in Africa? Why can't you just start your own thing? You can't just be answering to Rome. They don't look at you there. They don't care about you. The only thing that they want is the remittances of your offerings. Because, of course, so much offering is coming from Africa, from different dioceses. It's going to Rome. They account to Rome. Why can't you guys just do your own thing and build your own huge cathedral or something like that without the control of the Vatican, and exercise your Catholicism or whatever, or even change it a little bit, tweak it a little bit, remove the idolatry system of bowing down before statues, and remove all this Hail Mary full of grace kind of worship, and do the right thing. Come up with your own thing. I don't know what it is with Africans. They don't have that independence or that freedom to just come up with something beautiful, something, so more spiritual, that is not controlled by third parties, like how the Vatican is being controlled by the Antichrist right now. Because we can all agree that the Vatican has been infiltrated. It's no longer independent. It is now being influenced, by the Freemason, by other different systems. So some of the endorsements that they give to world order bills, they clearly show that they're no longer an independent organization. So I'm just, calling out on the African priests, if it's possible, man. Just cut ties with Rome. Cut ties with the Vatican. Let Rome oversee other Catholic denominations worldwide, and you just do your own thing, because they don't even want you there. That's why they will never elect a black pope, an African pope. in years to come. They'll never, they don't. Now people, okay, just tell me what you think about this video.
But where I think we as South Africans have to take responsibility is, well, particularly the ANC, which has been the most dismal ruling party. I was a member of the ANC in 1994, and I can't believe how poorly they've managed the country. But mostly because they took a racist system and they didn't make any adjustments to it. So today we have the architecture of apartheid. The ecosystem of everything that we do is based on apartheid colonialism. And the ANC could have made changes, but what did they do? They just kept that system intact. They just allowed the black man and the black woman to be accommodated in the system, to have a small place at the table.
Okay, go back and look at my Stitch video, because there are some white South Africans defending the refugee program for people who are not refugees. Okay, and they're trying to complain about the BEE laws and all that stuff that go on in South Africa. And what the BEE laws are, it's basically making it more equal playing field, because historically in South Africa, white people have gotten all the work, period, leaving black South Africans out of work. Okay, that's historic. No one can argue that. And they're saying, well, because of the BEE laws, we're refugees because we can't find jobs. No, what you're feeling, white South Africans, is equality and a form of repairing the damage you did to black South Africans for freaking generations. You don't know the damage you did? Let me read it to you, okay? Because I have it right here. Some facts about apartheid. Education. Education is free and compulsory for white children. For black children, it's not compulsory, and there's a special education tax that black people have to pay. All public education is racially segregated with racially differentiated curricula. Per capita expenditure, 1983, whites, $692. Africans, $96. Health services are extensive and advanced for whites. The infant mortality rate for whites is 13 per 1,000 live births. For rural Africans, it's 240 per 1,000. Between 30 and 50% of African children die before the age of 5. Let's get down to employment. Average monthly industrial wages for whites was $701 in South Africa during apartheid. Africans were only making $186. Let me read some more. If you're black in South Africa and you're caught somewhere you are not authorized to be, or if your pass is not in order, you are jailed. Such actions by the police are commonplace. In fact, every 2.5 minutes, a black South African is arrested for a crime that, by definition, a white South African can never commit. Even if the pass system is modified, apartheid controls are unlikely to lapse. I'm going to repeat that. Even if the pass system is modified, the apartheid controls are unlikely to lapse. Now, what's up with this pass system? Okay, all Africans have been forced in South Africa to register with the government and to carry photo pass books filled with an individual's work history and tax status. The government decides where they can live and work. 87% of the land is for whites only. The remaining 13%, the most barren and least usable land in the country, is allocated for African people. When I say African people, y'all, I'm talking about black African people. Many live in townships, huge impoverished ghettos surrounded by military patrols like Soweto outside Johannesburg, and are allowed to commute to work in the cities, but not to live there. Now let me continue. Millions of South African blacks have been forced to live in 10 isolated homelands. Many of the Africans now living in these homelands have been moved there forcibly from the land they have lived on for generations. 80% of the families in the homelands live at or under starvation levels. 1 of every 4 children dies at birth. Each year, millions of male Africans leave the homelands to work on contract as low-paid migrant workers in the mines and industry. The women and children who are not allowed to go along barely survive. The old, ill, and infirm do not survive at all. Families are separated year after year by the system. They are together at most for short visits at the end of each contract. Let me talk to you about the strategy of apartheid. The strategy of apartheid is to divide and conquer, to keep Africans divided along tribal lines and then to separate them from other, more privileged racial groups. 23 million Africans make up 74% of the population. 2.6 million of mixed descent, called coloreds, make up 8.5. Nearly a million people of Asian descent, primarily Indians, make up 2.5, and 4.7 million whites make up 14.5. Not all South African whites support apartheid, though. Africans are forbidden to vote, buy or sell land in most areas, or choose where they live and work. They are deprived by law of any control over their lives. There are 317 laws to enforce the subjugation of Africans. These laws permit the jailing of the government's opponents and allow the police to operate with impunity. Apartheid is not only a system of racial domination, it's also a system of economic exploitation. Economic exploitation. Okay? So that's what the B laws are trying to correct. Okay? Apartheid is no more or less than a system of modern slavery. Blacks are used as cheap labor to dig out the gold, diamonds, and strategic minerals that have made white South Africans rich. So, I read enough. Okay? So, if you're on my comments of the Stitch post talking about, oh, well, it's hard for some people to find a job. It's hard for some of the white people to find a job. Well, that doesn't qualify you for refugee status. Okay? You just now are feeling something called equality. Okay? That's what you're feeling. You're feeling now, oh, you're basically on the same level. You're getting to the same level as everyone else. Now you actually have to compete for work. It's not just handed to you because you're white. Yeah, you're actually going to be competing and repairing the damage you did to generations of women, men, and children. That's what you're doing. And so, yeah, you want it the way it used to be, where you can just easy in, easy. It's not like that for the majority of the world. So why should it be like that for you? Especially when it's your forefathers who did it, and some of them are still alive, because apartheid was like yesterday.
Well, aren't these just the healthiest looking refugees I've ever seen? The most nourished, the most well kept, the cleanest, most well dressed refugees I've ever seen. I've never seen such stunningly healthy, good looking refugees in my life. Thank God America offered them refuge from South Africa. Thank God. They look like they could not have even stood another day there. Thank God.
Those people who are being enticed to go to the United States do not fit the definition of a refugee. A refugee is someone who has to leave their country out of fear of political persecution, religious persecution, or economic persecution. And
that's what the United States says they're undergoing in South Africa. That's why they've opened the door for them.
Yes, and they don't fit that bill. They don't fit that description. And I had a conversation with President Trump on the phone, and he said, what's happening down there? And I said, President, what you've been told by those people who are opposed to transformation back home in South Africa is not true. And I added to him, I said, we were well taught by Nelson Mandela and other iconic leaders like Oliver Tambo on how to continue to build a united nation out of the diverse groupings that we have in South Africa. We're the only country on the continent where the colonizers came to stay, and we have never driven them out of our country. So they are staying and they're making great progress. It's a fringe grouping that does not have a lot of support, that is anti-transformation and anti-change, that would actually prefer to see South Africa going back to apartheid type of policies. And I said to him, I would never do that. I learned at the feet of Nelson Mandela, and we intend to proceed with the implementation of our constitutional architecture. And I thought in my conversation with him early in the morning at 4 o'clock South African time, he understood that. And I said, I'd like to come and meet him so that we can discuss this matter further. So those people who have fled are not being persecuted, they are not being hounded, they are not being treated badly, and they are leaving ostensibly because they don't want to embrace the changes that are taking place in our country in accordance with our constitution. So we think that the American government has got the wrong end of the stick here, but we'll continue talking to them.
So a face-to-face meeting is coming up. Is Elon Musk invited when you have that face-to-face meeting?
Well, I don't know. They will determine whether Elon Musk is part of it or not. I will go with my own South African delegation.
Black people are not the original inhabitants of South Africa, which, in fact, they're realizing that now. When they claimed that they owned all the land, the original inhabitants, of who there are not many left, said, excuse me, we were the original inhabitants, you guys were migrants here as well, which they were. Okay, the original inhabitants of Southern Africa are called the Khoisan. In the West, the Bushmen are Khoisan. Hottentots are Khoisan. But you can't use those words anymore, you now have to call them Khoisan, okay? All right, now, and they were the inhabitants of the whole of Southern Africa. So the whole of South Africa, at one stage, were Khoisan. The black people originated in what is now Cameroon. That's where they...
Hold on, Khoisan aren't black?
No.
What are they?
They're a completely separate ethnicity all on their own. In fact, if you look at them, they're kind of yellowy. They're a light brown yellow color, right. But they look more Asian than African. They do not consider themselves African.
Interesting.
When the white guys arrive in Cape Town, so 1652 is when Dutch guys arrived there. At that stage, you could have divided South Africa almost exactly 50-50, what's now South Africa. The western half of the country was entirely Khoisan. There were no black people there. None at all. Only Khoisan. So we're Cape Towners, all that area, Khoisan people. The northern part of the country did have black people. They'd started arriving, and they were still migrating.
How long had they been there in the northern?
Well, it's a moot point, and people have debated it. It would seem that black people had probably started arriving in the northern parts of South Africa maybe 1,000 years, something like that, about 1,000 years before whites got there, right up in the north, okay? And they've been slowly moving south because it's an empty space. I mean, one of the things about Africa is it's very empty. Up until the 1950s, Africa was very empty. It's the population exploded because white colonists, the naughty white colonists, put hospitals there, and there's been this huge population explosion since the 1950s. But Africa was really very empty up until then. And so tribes moved around and just occupied new empty territory. So the guys coming down from the north, who are called the Bantus, it's called the Bantu expansions, when black people came out of the Cameroons, they'd been occupying South Africa and moving systematically south, down the east coast.
They were pastoralists, am I right?
Yeah, they were pastoralists, yeah. Whereas the Khoisan were hunter-gatherers. They were like aboriginals, okay, so they hadn't become pastoralists yet. The black guys are migrating down from the north and settling, doing exactly what white guys are doing. So white guys, the Dutch guys from Cape Town, were settling by moving westwards, eastwards. So the white guys are moving from Cape Town eastwards, and the black guys are moving down from the north, and they met at a place called the Fish River, which is now in the middle of South Africa, at a place called, it's still called border. Everybody in South Africa calls that part of the country the border, even though there's no border there at all anymore. But there was a river called the Fish River, which is where blacks and whites first encountered each other. And then it started 100 years of warfare between whites and the Xhosa, who were the tribe that they met there. So, okay, so at that point, that would have been in about 1700. So whites and blacks first encountered each other in 1700. Okay? So whites had already been there for 100 years at that point.